These faces are very in my face. Kyle and Crystal had Cenk Uygur on.
Welcome, Cenk Uygur, the Young Turks. We appreciate
Voted for Mamdani in Brooklyn. Good. Now go do it again. Why is Cenk like that? Because Cenk got bought. The TYT network got bought. Sorry, we've argued about this before, but literally, like, there was a switch turned where they started complaining about money, and then they also started doing, like, really weird red-brown right-wing shit. They got a Polymarket sponsorship, you know. No, you know, maybe some people say, well, it wasn't that. Well, I think it was, and you can't prove they weren't. So, yeah, I don't care. They're still anti-Israel, don't know about that. Oh, dude, there are tons of moneyed interests on the right that are not pro-Israel, right? It's not all the same shit, you know? For example, like tons of people who are kind of like in the Russia camp, right? Like Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson's not pro-Israel at all, you know?
you joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So oh, you want to explain? Go ahead.
Yeah, so
Yeah, you too, you cuties.
I was going to say, Cenk reached out to Kyle and I this week and said, hey, I think we got some things to talk through. Can I, you know, let's have a conversation. So we said, sure, let's do that. And this kind of follows on the heels of a discussion / debate that you and I had back in December, where, you know, the launching point, and you can, you know, correct me if you don't think that this is a fair characterization of this conversation, but the launching point was a tweet that you had put out expressing some optimism about the Trump administration. So we can put the tweet up on the screen from Cenk to refresh everybody's memory about where we started. So you said, in November 29th, 2024, I've been trying to figure out why I'm more optimistic now than I was before the election. Even though I was so against the guy who won, I know now MAGA is not my mortal enemy, neither is the extreme left. My mortal enemy is the establishment, and they have been defeated. So over the course of that conversation, you explained to me that the reason you felt optimistic was really two reasons. Number one, as you say there, the establishment was defeated. And number two, you felt that the elements of the populist right and the bros would hold Trump accountable. And it kind of built to this crescendo where he actually turned to the camera and said...
This, I should say, by the way, as somebody who's been around the block a few times, this to me, that tweet is like the easiest grift signal in the world, because I actually do not believe anyone can arrive at those positions authentically after having been an advocate for good politics for any length of time. It is a low IQ take. The idea of like boiling everything down. So for example, I've been doing a lot of like anti-establishment, anti-deep state posting lately, but a lot of it's been in line with a very specific Marxist framing of corporate power and the way it influences our elections. I don't equivocate between Democrats and Republicans. I talk about them as separate institutions because they are separate institutions. They're just separate institutions that exist under the same umbrella power structure. You can do anti-establishment posting, but there's a reason you have to be careful with it, because like obviously Nazis do anti-establishment posting, but you know what they mean when they say the establishment, right? You have to be careful with your words, and you have to be careful with how it comes across, because it's just like really easy bait for low IQ conspiracy theorists who genuinely believe that everything from your child's curriculum to contrails to a war in the Middle East are all being directed by a shadowy cabal of people, when in reality it's not, right? It's probably like a loosely organized group of kind of class-conscious, ultra-wealthy people, financiers and corporate leaders who all have each other's Rolodexes. They, you know, go on business retreats together, and they influence political thought, but can't directly control it because the world's just too complicated for any people to directly control anything that big. But they still have a lot of influence. Does everyone understand what I'm getting at here? To go from decent political advocacy to like, Trump winning is a blow against the establishment. I stand with neither the right nor the left. Nothing's my enemy but the establishment. Like, it's not, I don't think it's real. I just don't believe it. I'm not sold on it, like, at all.
Listen, guys, in a little while, you're going to be able to say whether I was right or whether Crystal was right. Let's go ahead and play that portion as a refresher. That is element number 2.
I want to address something to the audience. Can I?
Sure.
Is this my camera here? Okay, yeah. So right-wing populists, it is now your job to prove Crystal wrong. Okay.
Go out and do it, y'all.
So she doesn't believe you. And by the way, almost no one on the left, other than me and Anna, believe you guys that you actually want to cut the Pentagon. And that you could pressure Elon Musk and Donald Trump to cut the Pentagon. So are you going to prove the left wrong, or are you going to prove them spectacularly right? Am I going to have to come on here and apologize to Crystal for ever believing in any right-wing populist and say, oh, I was a sucker. Those guys are liars. All they want to do was increase the Pentagon, have more wars, more corruption, and they never held Trump accountable. We waited 4 long years for them to hold him accountable, and all they did was kiss his ass and show that they don't really believe in freedom. They said all this stuff about freedom, but they never meant it. Mm-hmm. They said all this stuff about drain the swamp, but they never meant it. They said all this anti-war stuff, but they never meant it. We're going to come back on here in 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, and we're going to keep doing a check.
So,
well, that all aged pretty poorly, huh? Big, beautiful bill, record Pentagon spending, bombing Iran in the Middle East, the entire right wing pivoting to support him.
Cenk, that was kind of the context of that discussion. And just for the audience and for you, since there's 2 of us and one of you, and we don't want to be like jumping on all over each other, and maybe Kyle and I have disagreements on things, I thought I would kind of handle the first 30 minutes more or less. Kyle would have handled the second 30 minutes. You've got a engagement you've got to go to, hard out in an hour, so that's the amount of time that we have.
We could do this for 4 hours if we had the time.
I'm sure we could, and it would be painful for all involved. But in any case, we've got a hard out for Cenk in 1 hour. We want to be very respectful of his time. So with everything that's happened in Trump 2.0, do you still feel that original optimism that you expressed at the time, do you still feel that was well-founded?
Absolutely. And
yeah, this is what makes me think grift, right? I'm not going to keep honing on that point, but like incompatible with reality, right? It's from my perspective, it simply is, you are either being paid to say it, which is the case with like every right-wing broadcaster, right? Like your money comes from being insincere and inauthentic, or genuine mental illness, like actual difficulty functioning in society. And I don't think Cenk has that level of, I don't think that level of dysfunctionality is present in like the majority of the way he presents. Like that's the gas leak theory, right? But I have to assume it's grifting.
Part of the reason I wanted to come on is to see if you guys are on planet Earth or live in an alternate reality. And I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm being genuine about it. And Chris, I went back and watched our conversation from back then.
Yeah,
and
me too.
Yeah, you kept saying like things against Trump. And that's why I didn't even think it was a debate. It was a discussion, because I was like, yeah, I totally agree with you on Trump and the Republicans, et cetera. I was talking about the populist right and the independents that voted for Trump, the actual voters. And you saw it in that clip. I don't address Trump. I don't address any Republicans. I address the voters. So what has happened since then? Joe Rogan has come out against what Trump has done with Mahmoud Halil, with Abrego Garcia. Almost all of the Maga hosts have come out against the war, ranging from Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon. Then you've got
Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon are notably not in the accepted circuit of MAGA commentators. Those people have both been ousted. Tucker Carlson by Fox, and Steve Bannon isn't pulling huge numbers. Steve Bannon got ousted, and he exists in the periphery.
Got the politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene. You've got Tim Dillon. I'm not sure you can name a right-wing MAGA host or independent host that's for the war in Iran. So
every single person associated with the Daily Wire and Fox News, like that's dozens and dozens of very prominent people, and also like the entire Republican Party, Charlie Kirk, like all of them. Wait, is the Daily Wire still around? Yeah, and Matt Walsh is like hugely influential within it, and he's like ride or die with Trump, you know?
So I'm genuinely curious, like, are you guys not seeing that, or does that somehow magically not count?
So Cenk, I have the same question as to whether or not you're on planet Earth, because first of all, let me ask you this question. Do you think that Trump 2.0 is better or worse than Trump 1.0?
Trump is irrelevant.
No, he's not irrelevant, because I'll tell you why. Here's why. You expressed optimism about how all this would go. And the reason you were optimistic is because, hold on. No, we just saw your tweet, okay? The reason you were optimistic
I can explain the tweet.
Is because you thought these various groups and influencers would hold him accountable. So did they constrain his behavior, for example, when Elon Musk was running around with a chainsaw, slashing Social Security and gutting the federal government and gutting the
I refuse to take part in this like pantomiming in this puppet game. The idea that denunciations of Trump from the right mean anything is ridiculous. Marjorie Taylor Greene is and always has been the biggest Trump dick rider, and she's been praising him for like ending the 12-day war. Like, all denunciation of Trump behavior is instantly reconciled by any next thing he does, no matter how superficial. None of them actually signal a break from the overwhelming cultural and political and social and like voting block that they represent. You know, like, have you seen, for instance, Joe Rogan said, like, yeah, if that's true, that they're just like deporting people for no reason, that's fucked up. Has Joe Rogan come out and like become a vehement opponent of the insane, unprecedented deportations that Trump's ICE has been doing? No, of course not, because he just says a thing and then moves on. But overwhelmingly, his podcast remains right-wing. These denunciations are aired only to give the credence of acknowledging disagreement, so you can then paper past them and move on. They could express an infinite number of disagreements. It wouldn't change the fact that they are fundamentally right-wing and therefore support everything Trump does, even the deportations, right? By continuing to support Trump, Joe Rogan is supporting the deportations. You can't support a leader and like you wave away one thing you say you don't like, but then you go on to, and I bet he doesn't even oppose the deportations. He just, you know, he was confronted with a question one time and he went, yeah, that sounds bad. But I'm sure that he would provide a defense of it if really held to the fire.
FPB. No, we didn't. In fact, we saw Joe Rogan host Elon Musk, not to mention Mark Zuckerberg and Mark Andreessen, to make the case for those things, okay? No accountability there. Did we see them constrain his behavior and hold him accountable when he launched a crypto shitcoin, the most corrupt scheme in American history, most likely? No, he did it. He's faced no accountability for that. You mentioned some dissent from Rogan on the kidnapping of college students off of college campuses. Is it the right that organized in opposition to that? No, it's the left and it's liberals. The only time that Trump's actions have been constrained at all in this Trump 2.0 era, which is vastly worse than I even expected when you and I had that conversation. I mean, we've got men in hundreds of people in a concentration camp. I didn't see any accountability from the right on that. I don't see any accountability from the right on an American city that is right now under invasion by our own troops, Marines on the ground in the city of LA.
Still going on.
No, I don't see any accountability there. I see an administration that, as I predicted, the guardrails are completely off. And the only places where he has been constrained at all is when the left and liberals organized against Elon Musk, Tesla protests, showing up at town halls, etc., made him toxic. He had to be turfed out of the administration. And in the context of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, when you had mass left liberal resistance, even pushing Democratic leaders who were lame and weak to do something, Chris Van Hollen goes down to El Salvador, and the administration did something they did not want to do, which was to bring him back. That is the only time this administration has been constrained. It has had nothing to do with the right, had everything to do with liberals and the left organizing against him.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Dude, why did Cenk agree to be here when he's obviously not, like, taking it seriously? He's not going to convince anyone with this. Like, I understand that he gets his paycheck from whoever, no matter what he does. But like, what is the point of agreeing to this if you're not going to pantomime the effort? You know, it's dude, he's so shameless. Yeah, my opinion is that one of the reasons why the right wing became impossible to deal with and debate online is because so much money got involved. Because once you reach a point where, like, even relatively small right-wing content creators are just totally in it for the bag. YouTube algorithm, AdSense, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how stupid the shit you say is, you will get a paycheck for it. And for people who actually do get money, right? Like, their reputation doesn't even matter. They're just getting the money either way. And as soon as, like, their reputation stops being the thing they care about, it starts being about the paycheck at the end of it, they don't care anymore. You know what I mean? He'll get love bombed by the right for arguing against progressives like Kyle and Crystal. It doesn't matter how convincing he is. Maybe, but like, Cenk is respectfully a dumb fat retard. He's sorry to talk about Hassan's uncle that way. Like, the right doesn't like him. Have you seen what TYT reception looks like online? It's not like the right is fawning over them. They spend like 15 years being resist libs. Like, I don't think they're getting that. Listen, okay, the time for that grift, the time for that buy-in was before. That was Trump's first term. Okay? It's too late now. Now they're like consolidating. They're closing ranks, you know? They're not going to go out there and go like, oh, well, you know what we need? We need to ally with Cenk Uygur from TYT. No, they don't care. Miss the boat.
So you asked about 12 questions. I would love the time to answer it, but you didn't actually answer my question. Do you see a massive MAGA revolt against the war? And I'm being genuine. It's a literal question. Or do you just not see it?
Cenk, here's what I can tell you. Okay, Charlie Kirk, your buddy, he has already.
Not my buddy.
He has already gone. He has already gone. He's already gone from. He's already gone from being critical of the Iran war to guess what? He got a call from the White House, and now what he's saying? What's he saying? Oh, I trust Trump. Trump is the man for this moment. I know he's going to make the right decision.
Happened instantly, by the way. When the news was Trump wasn't going to get involved in Iran, Charlie Kirk was like, thank God for Trump, the one president who won't get us involved in the Middle East. Then Trump bombs Iran. Charlie Kirk's like, I trust Trump. Sorry, I trust Trump. Yeah, it's like because they don't believe in anything. But how many times do we have to reiterate this? I'm not talking to Crystal with this. I'm just saying, like, you know.
Exact
Steve
quote
Bannon.
is, can I give the exact quote?
Yeah.
This is from Charlie Kirk. Quote, we must trust Trump in this situation. Go ahead with Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon, hold on, Steve Bannon, put up element number 4. This is the Financial Times today. Steve Bannon says, if the president, as commander-in-chief, makes a decision to do this, the MAGA movement, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the Matt Gaetzes, we will fight it up till the end. But if he has more intelligence and makes that case to the American people, the MAGA movement will support President Trump. When Trump says that he gets to define what America first is, he's right about that. And so when you have Bannon, who also was critical of Elon Musk originally and got a call from the White House and said, cut it out, and he bent the knee, these people time and time again, Cenk, all they do is ultimately when Trump makes the decision, they bend the knee. We are already far enough into this administration to know there has been no constraint on his action that has come from the right. None. And we're in a war with Iran.
Okay.
We are already in a war with Iran. They didn't constrain him here. He's doing whatever the hell he wants to do.
Okay. So you guys just spoke for like 8 minutes doing a straw man. Okay. So you make it sound, and this is what's so harmful. You guys make it sound like I'm pro-Trump, and I think that MAGA is just a bunch of angels who are secretly left.
Yeah, dude, this is like the language of somebody who does not care, like, at all about this conversation. This is why I don't do debates anymore. It's such a waste of time to care about a thing, and then the other person won't even pretend to care.
And they're going to magically agree with us on every issue. And the minute that Trump does something wrong, they're going to all push back 100%. And that's what I believed. I believed in rainbows and unicorns. Of course not, Crystal. Of course not. Well, you're trying to move them. Moving the other side is super hard. And so when you see something, anything where they actually agree with us, you have to encourage that. So when you say all the things that you said, is Trump a bad guy?
Denim content.
Of course. So if you're listening out here, guys, the framing of all of this is totally wrong. Like, we're having a conversation. Do you think Trump's a bad? Of course I think Trump's a bad guy. He's totally authoritarian. That's why I voted against him. That's why I worked so hard against him. So even the framing makes me like sound defensive when you guys started with a premise that's out in la-la land. We totally oppose Trump. So now the second part of the premise that's totally wrong is,
what the f is he saying? He's saying nothing. Like, that was actually pretty impressive. You could have blanked out on that for 30 seconds and you wouldn't have missed any actual content. Like, semantically, no information was contained in any of that.
Well, I think that MAGA is going to revolt on every issue against Trump from day one. Why? Why would they? They love Trump. Of course not.
Have they revolted on any issue?
You're looking for, is there one or two issues where there is actual agreement? And can we take that agreement and do something interesting to restrain Trump in those issues? So when we talk about immigration,
and so when has that worked?
Okay, hold on. Well, we're in the middle of it right now. So
we're at war with Iran, Cenk. Hate to break it to you. We're at war with Iran. It didn't work.
Okay. So, Crystal, let me finish. So when you talk about immigration and all the things that he's terrible on, I know what MAGA's movable on or not. I talk about it on the Young Turks all the time. If you think you're going to move them on immigration, you are nuts. They're not going to move an inch on immigration. So I fight him tooth and nail on that dungeon in El Salvador that they're sending people to.
Then why mention Joe Rogan talking about Mahmoud Khalil or Kumar Bego Garcia? Why mention that if you acknowledge now, like, there's no way the base would. Also, how can you possibly rely on the good instincts of a populist base that voted for Trump if they wouldn't object to something like this? You know what I mean? Like, you're kind of giving the game away there, that there's not actually any way to reason with them.
In the streets. Now, there's some issues like immigration where they haven't moved an inch and they never will move an inch, right? There's some issues like the Marines in the streets where a smattering of them are like, this is a little uncomfortable. It feels a little unconstitutional. It doesn't feel quite right. Those libertarian wing, remember, guys, this is super important. There's 77 million people that voted for Trump, right? If you treat them all the same, you will not be able to win elections. Why is winning elections important? Because that is how you take power away from Trump, away from the Republicans. So if you treat all 77 million as hardcore MAGA, you are going to push them away and they're going to vote against you. You can say, oh, no, but it makes me feel better. I have emotional release and my audience likes me more because I seem like I'm tougher on Trump.
What is he talking about? He's suggesting that you're the grifter if you criticize Republicans for doing the things that they believe in. Like, that makes you the grifter. You're just looking for, like, easy views and votes if you say things that are true and that you believe in.
Trump! I was so mean to him. Yeah, but did that persuade anybody? I called all of his voters fascists. Yes, but did that persuade anyone? You're trying to persuade the people in the middle.
Isn't the idea that they can't be moved at all a Democrat official belief? So this is complicated. The problem is that the version of this dynamic that Cenk is describing is made up. It is a fake political strategy constructed by right-wingers to make you be nicer to them while they f your like dog to death in front of you. You know, what Cenk might be doing here, I don't know. I can't see. The camera cuts off at the nips, but I don't have a dog, so I guess I'm safe. The problem with this is it's the idea that there is a populist mass of people on the right within the Republican Party who are willing to band together to stand up against Trump on principled issues. The problem is that this group of people do not exist. That group is immaterial. You can't be on the right and be pro-Trump and be populist. You might be susceptible to populist rhetoric, but you don't actually have any populist, like, political instincts. If you did, why? Well, why this? But everyone is susceptible to populist rhetoric, right? So, like, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a populist. Now, Trump can lose approval with people, but those people have to be reached out to from the left, bringing them to the left. You can't work with people on the right against Trump because definitionally, if they're on the right, they won't work with you against Trump. If you're on the right, you're pro-Trump. There isn't internal division within the Republicans. If a person meaningfully disagrees with Trump to the extent that they have like a real moral objection to what Trump is doing, they won't be on the right anymore. That's where the line is. It's not like the Democrats, where you can be on the left but have like meaningful disagreements with any left figure, AOC, Bernie, or you can be a Democrat but have disagreements with Biden or Obama that are significant enough that they manifest as political opposition. That is not the case with the GOP right now. So if there are people who get disillusioned with Trump because Trump wants to, you know, destroy the country, destroy Social Security, destroy Medicaid, destroy Medicare, destroy everything, you know, sure, they need to move from the right and they can join the left. And if not, what is there to talk about? What about never Trump Republicans? What about them? This fantasy group of people that people like Chuck Schumer like obsess over? This like big, noble, savage horde of Republicans who didn't vote for Trump? I saw what happened last election. They voted for Trump. Yeah, you're chasing unicorns, you know? Screw them, virtue signaling. I guess I just don't understand the implication. Let's say that you oppose Donald Trump cutting Medicaid. You know, like you don't like the cutting Medicaid part of Trump's one big beautiful bill. And there are some Republicans saying, hey, we don't like that you're cutting Medicaid. As a left-leaning person, what are you supposed to do? My approach to that would be to go, oh, you shouldn't have voted for the guy who voted to cut Medicaid then. Maybe you should leave the political party that's 100% on board with cutting Medicaid. You know, the party where basically every Republican in Congress and the Senate and on Fox News and Daily Wire and every power center they have is supporting the one big beautiful bill, including the president that you voted for. Maybe you should leave that party that is completely and totally in favor of cutting Medicaid and vote next time for a party that isn't that. Am I wrong? What else can I do? Cenk instead says Republicans can be worked with. They just can't. They operate as a bloc with basically no internal division. If you break with them in any meaningful, principled way, you're just not a part of the bloc anymore. The closest they have is like Thomas Massie, I guess, and Thomas Massie is as close as we're going to get to like principled opposition from within the Republican Party from like a libertarian perspective, but doesn't really represent a significant portion of the electorate. If a person has principles, they wouldn't support Trump to begin with. Yeah, Cenk's stance is ridiculous. It's not even a real stance. The point is to always chide and tone police people on the left for not being nice enough to fascists. That's the point of it. There's not a real political strategy being advocated for. There's not a real like outreach effort or here's like the specific thing that you can push for, the specific candidate that you can vote for. It's just in some abstract way, you are too upset with the people who voted to destroy your country and kill you personally. Your opposition to their behavior is what's actually dooming the country. In reality, the people who voted for all of the bad things that are happening, those people are more progress oriented than you, because you have a problem with all the bad things that they want, as opposed to them who have a problem with only one of the bad things that the party has done that they don't like. It's nonsense. Anyway, I'm rambling.
To come to your side. So what are the issues where we've got a fighter's chance? War. Okay. So now, do I think that on day one, they were all going to flip and then act and be successful in stopping all of the establishment, all the neocons? And by the way, were we successful? We were not successful in stopping any of them during Biden or any other Democratic administration either, right? So now there's a giant full-blown revolt.
But within the Democrats, there were so many people who were so opposed to what was being done in Israel and Gaza that it was an actual thorn in the side of the Democrats. Trump dropped bombs in Iran, and instantly every Republican was like, yes, sir, we love war in the Middle East, sir. Regime change, sir. He literally advocated for regime change, and Republicans were salivating at the idea. Like, it took no time at all. There's no principle here. There are no principles here.
From MAGA against this war. Now, if you're saying, no, I don't see Tucker Carlson, Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Posobiec, Cernovich, Candace Owens, et cetera, all of them opposed to the war, but you might not, because a lot of people watch programming that honestly just kind of gives them a misleading sense of what's happening.
Did you see Tucker, Trump saying, Tucker called me to apologize. He said he went too far. Did you see Steve Bannon saying, we're all going to fall in line ultimately? So I'm not talking about, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the however many.
By the way, like if you go to Marjorie Taylor Greene's Twitter, she is salivating over Trump and his way of treating Iran. She was all gung-ho, no more war in the Middle East for years. And then out of nowhere, Trump bombs Iran. And she's like, I don't know. And then Trump says, never mind, I'm done bombing. And Marjorie Taylor Greene's like, great, excellent. We support Trump completely. Thank you, President Trump, for pursuing peace. You should get the Nobel Peace Prize for doing the thing you said you wouldn't do for 10 years, but you only did it a little bit.
Million Americans voted for Trump, some of whom are hardcore MAGA, and you will never move them. And I guarantee you, the moment that Trump says this is the policy, they're going to say, you're right, sir, this is the policy, this is brilliant, and I am on board. Are there independents that can are there independents that can be moved? Yes. There are two separate questions here, okay? Number one is we are in hell right now. Like, the level of damage that has been done to this country, done to the world from Trump 2.0 already is astounding. So the number one thing is triage, right? How do we stop?
That's what I'm doing.
How do we stop as much damage as we can? And the track record thus far in the Trump administration is the only time he has been constrained is through the left and liberals banding together and going through the court system and public pressure. That's it. That's all we've seen in this administration. The other question is how do you win elections? So go ahead and address that, and then we can talk about the election piece. But real quick, before you get in, as to the earnestness of this MAGA anti-war movement, put element number 3 up on the screen. Do you know? Tell me how many Republicans have signed on to the War Powers Resolution?
One.
Is Marjorie Taylor Greene? No. Is Lauren Boebert there? No. One. Thomas Massie, a libertarian who is, ideologically consistent, kind of similar ideologically to Dave Smith. Every other person here is a Democrat. So to the earnestness of this anti-war MAGA coalition and their commitment.
You get what when everyone understands what I mean by, like, you have to be paid to think that Republicans are telling the truth when they say they're opposed to things like regime change and interventionism. Like, they'll pretend to be if it's politically popular, but they'll switch into pro-war gung-homo the nanosecond. They were literally, like, boasting about how much they wanted to bomb Mexico during the Republican presidential primary in 2024. Like, the few candidates, Haley and DeSantis and Trump, were talking about it like it was a competition about how willing they would be
to blocking war with Iran. Here is where the rubber meets the road. You have one Republican who is already at odds with Trump, who is willing to put his name on this war powers resolution. That's it.
So, Crystal, look, I know you don't mean it, but you keep conflating two things. The Republican politicians, including Trump, and the Republican voters, or the people who voted for Trump.
Okay, so we're ceding the point that every Republican politician, except for, I guess, Thomas Massie, are completely 100% in lockstep. Like, there's no ideological division within the party. They exist as a bloc to support the president. So in a political sense, then, Republicans are completely unassailable. So we're exclusively talking about the voters. Can we get any data points to that?
So are the Republican politicians corrupt? Of course they're corrupt. Are they going to say...
Not corrupt. Corrupt wasn't the accusation. They are corrupt, but it's not about them being corrupt. It's just this is what the Republicans voted for. Corrupt implies that the Republican politicians are betraying the intentions and will of the people. In reality, they're doing basically exactly what they ran on.
Hey, Israel, I'll be your bitch, and I'll do whatever the hell you want me to do. Of course they are. They're completely owned by Israel, okay? So AIPAC, et cetera, the warmongers, by the way, let's be honest, is more than half the Democratic Party totally owned by AIPAC? Yes, right? So I know, oh my God, oh no, you can't be honest. You have to just say the other side is terrible and our side is angels. No, I'm not.
Yeah, man. Kyle Kulinski and Crystal Ball never criticized the Democrats. What the f is this guy talk? Dude, this is so tedious. I'm tuning out. I'm tuning out. I feel bad for my boy Kyle, because if I tune out now, I don't see him at all. But like genuine, Cenk is not even providing like a compelling fake narrative here. You know what I mean? I can't imagine pulling this one against Kyle and Crystal. Yeah, but the Democrats are angels, right? Yeah, you would be better positioned to argue that against me than them. And I hate the Democrats more than I hate the Republicans. Jesus Christ.
But Cenk, would you rather be on the side of the 37 who signed onto the War Powers Resolution,
Crystal,
or the
I am
one
on the side of the 37. Everything you frame is a straw man. I am on.
Everything you claim is a straw man, right after suggesting Crystal and Kyle think the Democrats are all angels. Really remarkable stuff. Yeah, okay, my boy. Listen, Crystal, wonderful to see you. Kyle, how you doing? I can't watch this without seeing you. What's up?
Would come around. That's not me speaking, that's Steve Bannon. The vast majority of the MAGA movement will go, look, we trust your judgment. We don't like it. In fact, we may hate it, but we'll get on board. Tucker Carlson called Trump and apologized, and he also said on his podcast with Steve Bannon, quote, I like Israel. I don't talk about Gaza because my audience got mad at me. He said, quote, watching Donald Trump, who at his core is sincere about peace, I feel for President Trump, and he just has to roll with it. That is not true. What he's saying is not true. These are not allies. They will immediately start moving the goalposts as soon as Trump starts bombing Iran.
Here we go again.
You're going to get this. You're going to get, oh, he's getting bad advice from the neocons around him. It's not a big deal. It's a limited attack. It's defensive. It's not offensive. This isn't like Iraq. There are no boots on the ground. The only people who are sincere that I will grant you, Cenk, is libertarians. So Thomas Massie and Dave Smith, because libertarians have a track record, like Ron Paul did, of being very principled. But everybody in MAGA, or 99% of them, will bend the knee. Just like 99% of the ones in Congress have already bent the knee. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's saying things that are against the war, she's ultimately not signing onto the bill to block the war.
Okay, so here we go again. So again, 90-10, guys. The framing of that question makes it sound like I think Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson have good intent, and my God, they're ready to rebel on everything against Donald Trump.
I said Iran.
No.
I said Iran.
Can I just answer a question?
But I didn't say that. I said...
Curious question. How can Cenk claim to be anti-Zionist when he talks like one, with all of the constant performative whining, strawmanning of others, and every time he's criticized, he's like, you think I'm so bad, but I'm not. Like, no firmly planted feet. My God, maybe he's getting the AIPAC checks. Maybe that's where the money's coming from. Look, the only way out of this is through, okay? The only way you beat fascism is making fascism untenable, all right? In the past, in, say, I don't know, think of an example, fascism has been defeated, you know. Sometimes it comes down to, we'll say, some pretty nasty terms, which the fascists start, by the way. I don't know if you remember, Germans say the Poles started World War II through ethnic persecution of Germans on their western border, but we know who started World War II, okay? But if it doesn't come to that, and I'd like it not to, you have to make it socially untenable to be a fascist. Make it uncool, you know? You have to make it reprehensible. You have to make it, like, impossible, basically. This is how you win with basically every social conflict. Do you know why people, for the most part, aren't anti-miscegenation now? Anti-race mixing, right? Why most people, the vast majority of Americans, are fine with race mixing. It's not because we had anti-race mixing people sit down and we talked across the table or whatever. It's because over time, race mixing became common enough, and advocacy for, or at least passive acceptance of race mixing became common enough that it became socially untenable to be publicly anti-race mixing, you know? It became just really difficult, like life became hard for people who are anti-race mixing. We did the same thing with people who say the N-word with the hard R in public, like racist white people. 70, 80 years ago, you could be a white guy dropping the hard R in public, and I think in some social circles you would have been treated poorly, but I think for the most part in a lot of places you could get away with it without being affected that much. Nowadays, like, if you do that in public, oftentimes people will jump you. This is a better world. At the end of the day, like, you win these social battles through power. It needs to be untenable. It has to be uncool. It has to be impossible to be a fascist, you know? That's it. None of this gay-ass, well, hypothetically, there's a subset of a subset of a subset of people within the right, within the fascist movement who are good, but they don't want to express it, and the only way to get them to express it is to suck their dicks. No, I don't believe in this.
Iran.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. So I think that obviously 90% of the influencers, the hosts, etc., are going to stick with Trump 100%, right? Well, I wouldn't even say 90%. I'd say, 75% or so. Are they going to kiss his ass on everything? Well, of course they are. They're on the right.
So many fascists are like that because they like being socially untenable? No, they don't. People crave social acceptance. The internet has made it easier to be a social reject, but still have a community online. But there can be no communities for them online either. There should be no space on Earth or in the internet where it's acceptable to be a fascist. And if there is no space for them to be a fascist, then they won't be. The only reason a lot of these people are is because it was the easiest way to fit in with the group of who they thought the cool kids were, like online, like Discord or 4chan or whatever else. Terminology and beliefs that they accepted because it was socially easy, not because they thought about it. That's how most people are with most things.
Their whole ecosystem is based on kissing politicians and leaders' asses. Now, let's be honest, not us and not you guys, but MSNBC and now a lot of online hosts on the left, their job is to kiss Democratic ass. And they say, oh, yeah, Joe Biden was young and dynamic, etc. So, yes, we have the partisans, and they are, by definition, always going to stick with one side is great, the other side is the devil. Okay, so now when you get to the 25% of hosts, because now the reason
boring.
To prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons, that's exactly the framing that Trump is using right now, support 72%. They are more pro-war. So are there some who, don't want to get in another foreign entanglement? Sure. But overwhelmingly, are they going to back an Iran war? Are they already backing an Iran war because Trump says so? 100%.
Okay, so let's establish who we're talking about. So when you talk about Trump and the Republican politicians, 99% of them are liars. They're going to be pro-war. They're going to do all the terrible things that we're against, that we are all against, including me. Okay. Now, when you move to the media, I'm out on a limb, and I get it. If you grant them an inch, people will say, okay, that's it. You love them, and you're a Trump supporter, et cetera. But I'm doing it anyway because I'm being honest. I think 75% of them are unreachable, but 25% of them, at a minimum, actually will listen to you, have their own audience pushing them to be anti-war. They're not with us on all issues. They're not with us on most issues. But on war, I think that a significant chunk of them are with us. Okay, so when you go to Charlie Kirk's audience...
The honest truth is that for a lot of people, their political positions are only relevant insofar as they affect elections. And fascists will vote for Trump because they like fascism, even if they dislike the whole war in the Middle East thing. Like, even if you found a fascist who was willing to break over that issue, at the end of the day, it would be between somebody they agree with 90% and somebody they don't agree with at all. And they would shrug and go, well, I guess war in Iran is worth not having, like, blacks around or whatever. And they would cast the same vote. That's why, like, this this gay, incremental, liberal approach to reaching people, this like, well, if we can work together on one issue, like Cenk is acting like he's this revolutionary centrist for having the same attitude towards convincing Republicans that Chuck Schumer infamously talked about before that he went on to go and lose the 2024 presidential. Well, his party did, you know. Like, it's like, yeah, I have a brave strategy. What if we did the Lincoln Project again? Very good, Cenk. Very good. You're very anti-establishment. No, you have to attack the ideology at its heart. People who move far enough from the right that they're not going to vote for Trump anymore aren't going to do so because one little nimby little element of their ideology has been challenged. The whole point of fascism is that it's idiosyncratic. It borrows from a bunch of different ideas and aesthetics. People change their minds all the time. Fascists don't believe any consistent set of things. That's why they're difficult to argue with. They don't believe in words or reality. They're irrational. They're intentionally irrational. They'll pretend to get really, really, really worked up about the idea of America cucking itself to the establishment by going to war in the Middle East again. And then once you go to war in the Middle East, they'll be like, yeah, American power, buddy. Look at my B-2 stealth bomber fan cam. Look at all these brown people getting bombed. Yeah. Anti-Semites on the right will talk about how they hate being cucked to Israel, but then when Israel and America do something military against Muslims, they'll be like, yeah, fucking burn them all, you know? They don't believe in shit, for real. You can't just win over them on like wedge issues. You have to bring them over in their totality, which means unified front. Anyway, let's wrap this one up.
Of the Republican base will be in favor of it. That's what I'm saying about it. But I want to ask you, when Trump does bomb Iran, do you think the number among Republicans...
Oh, that's right. This was before Trump bombed Iran. That's funny. So this aged like... What age is worse than milk? This aged like milk that you just dropped like a bunch of moss into? I don't know. Like the interview dropped, I think, like the day before the bombs fell. Which is crazy.
Will stay at only 50% supporting it, or is it going to go up to 70 or 80%? Hey guys, this is just a little piece of an hour-long debate that Crystal and I did with Cenk Uygur about the best path forward.
I really enjoy. Well, no, I hated this, but it's because I hate Cenk, and I hate people who are inauthentic and are too lazy to even pretend to be authentic. But I do love Crystal and Kyle. I do. I've had arcs, especially with Crystal, but literally. For the past 3 years, every time I've seen either of them, I've just been happy, you know? I feel like, in my mind, the worst version of Crystal and Kyle, as I perceived them adversarially years ago, would have been like they would be agreeing with Cenk here. And it's been long enough that I don't remember how much of that was me being uncharitable and how much of that was maybe like the perspective shifting a bit from both of our sides. I don't really know. But I think I'm finally solidly in the what's the opposite of a hater train that's not lover, because that implies something different, you know? I'm on the love train for Kyle and Crystal, okay? But it's in a separate car to them, because they're like smooching probably, because they're married, which is pretty gay, but I support it. Here's the whole debate if you want to watch it. A fair amount with some unintentional sexism, probably. From me? No shot. No shot. Yeah, it's all intentional here. They've been hitting the tanning booths hard. That's their listen. Cenk's strategy for winning in with the right is to take poly market money and like do little jerk offs with other fake centrists. Okay, Kyle and Crystal's strategy is to infiltrate MAGA Versailles, Mar-a-Lago by adopting the superficial signifiers of a true believer. Okay. It's like it's like French revolutionaries putting on the white wigs so they can get into the palace gardens and like, you know, spike the drinks.